All right, it happened. I got dropped by my insurance company. Now, you all know, if you don't have insurance in trucking, you can't operate. And that means that insurance poses an existential risk to your company. I witnessed this firsthand before. A guy I knew had one of his drivers get in an accident, do a bunch of damage, and then flee the scene. So his insurance company dropped him, and he was having to start a whole new company from scratch. But I never thought it would happen to me. I mean, I'm the only driver. I never got in an accident. I never even got a speeding ticket, but it can, and it did. So let's go through how this happened so I can help you prevent this from happening to you, and you can safeguard yourself against this existential threat. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is E.J. Anderson, the congressional auditor turned long-haul truck blocker, also known as the happiest, kindest trucker on the road. Welcome to White Glove Trucking, my channel dedicated to helping you use trucking as a vehicle to live your best life. Now, this all started when my insurance company sent me a letter that said told me I was on probation and that I was at a risk of being rejected, basically canceled. So it didn't say why I was on probation. So I emailed the nice admin lady and I asked her, I said, well, why am I on probation and what do I need to do to keep from being rejected? So she checked the system and she said, well, it looks like you're on probation because of your claims history. But then the very next day, my agent actually emailed me and told me that, well, it looks like the underwriters are not going to renew your policy due to your safety violations. Now, I thought he was just trying to cover up from the fact that his secretary had told me the real reason. I think he sensed that I was thinking this, so he sent me a list of my safety violations. Now, I gotta admit, I was surprised when I saw this. I didn't realize I had that many, but basically I had 9 safety violations in 3 years. All right, so we're gonna take a look at these claims and these safety violations so that I can help you guys prevent this from happening to you. Okay, first the claims. I made 3 claims in the 3 years I was with Great West. Now, the first claim was a hit and run at the TA. Basically, I was inside when it happened. Somebody backed into my truck while they were trying to back, and they fled the scene. No one saw it happen, and I checked, but the cameras at the TA weren't working, so that meant I had to do the claim against my insurance. That's a pretty simple, straightforward one. Let's move on to the second one. Now, this second claim is a bit of an interesting story, plus I think there's some lessons here, so I'm gonna spend a little bit of time on this one. Basically, on I-80 in Utah on Christmas Eve, a driver was coming up from behind me, and they lost control, veered off the road, and then overcorrected right into my drive tires. So I pulled over and got my folding bike out, rode back down to the scene. I found a bunch of debris in the road, but no vehicle. The guy had actually fled the scene. So later, when I was on the phone with the police, the officer asked, is there any identifying information? So I looked in the road, I didn't see anything, but as I was walking back up to my truck alongside it, I noticed something in my wheel. And so I got to the wheel, pulled it out, and lo and behold, it's the bumper with the license plate on it intact. So I gave the license plate to the officer. And so when the officer arrived later on the scene, he told me that he had sent some officers to the guy's house, and they found the car all mangled up and the guy inside reeking of alcohol. Now, as the officer and I were writing up the incident, he asked me, do you happen to know how fast you were going? And I told him, oh yeah, I know precisely how fast I was going because I always set the cruise to the same speed, 58 miles an hour. So he kind of paused and he was like, well, why do you drive so slowly when the permitted speed is 80 miles an hour? And I was like, well, I drive that speed for safety reasons, first of all, and then also for fuel savings. And lastly, I just think it's a more enjoyable way to drive. So he nodded and just didn't mention it again. But afterwards, I remembered that conversation and I remembered how he paused when I told him how fast I was going. Now, I've never mentioned this to anybody, but I've wondered if my slow speed played a role in that accident. Now, the other driver's insurance paid the claim, so I know I would never be found at fault officially. But I contemplated this as someone who wants to be as safe a driver as humanly possible. Now, the conclusion I came to is that driving slower is safer overall, but it's not foolproof. There's a kind of trade-off involved. It's safer because you have more reaction time, you have less damage if you do have an accident, and you have a lower chance that the accident will result in a fatality. But it's not foolproof because we don't drive in a bubble, but in a complex integrated system full of other drivers and human behavior. You know, I wish I could do an old school science experiment on this one, you guys. So if anybody has any insight into this kind of issue, I would love to hear about it. So please put in the comments. Now, I know a lot of you might be thinking, it was obviously the other guy's fault. Like, he was drunk, so why even worry about it? Well, I'm gonna let you in on a little technique that I use that has helped me out tremendously in my life. And it is always asking what part of an issue might be my fault. Like, what's my part in this problem? Even in situations where it seems like it might be unnecessary, asking this question helps me know when I need to course correct. This lets me take more control over a greater number of things that happen to me in life. It's like expanding your reach and your locus of control, and over time, this greatly helps improve your life outcomes. You know, I attribute this to helping me avoid many accidents out on the road. Those situations that are kind of ambiguous, where neither driver kind of knows who's supposed to do what. And I'll give you one more example, and this is probably the way it's helped me the most. I have a mantra: if they are being mean, it means I'm not being kind enough. Now, if you think this way while you are out on the road, I promise you it will greatly improve your trucking experience. You guys don't know how many free showers I done got from being the first trucker that's nice to the seemingly mean lady behind the counter. All right, on to the third and final claim. This one's another simple one. I hit a deer and it cost about $6,000. I think I forgot to tell you guys how much the first two cost. So the first one was $8,000, and the TNA hit and run was $8,000, and the drunk driver hit and run was about $1,500. I got 2 new drive tires, but that was against his insurance. Now, it was shortly after the third claim, the one where I hit a deer, that was the only one that was my fault, that I got the probation letter. So I ran some numbers on this. Now, at the time of the third claim, I had given Great West about $28,000 in premiums, and I had been paid about $14,000 in claims. So basically, I had taken back about 50%, or exactly half of what I had given them. So it was this 50% mark that triggered the probation, even though that was the first claim that was my fault. Now, the letter stated that I would be on probation for 2 years. So if I had stayed on probation for 2 years without doing any more claims, at the end of that time, I would have given Great West over $62,000 in premiums, which would have taken that claim percentage down from 50% to 22%. So it's safe to say that for Great West, 50% is too high and 22% is a more acceptable percentage. And I would guess that most insurance companies probably operate in a similar way. So what I want to convey to you guys is, to avoid getting dropped, be careful how many claims you do and for how much. Also, it couldn't hurt to ask what their policies are in regards to being put on probation or being rejected. You can ask them, how many claims per year will get me put on probation or rejected? And preferably, you ask these questions before you sign up. All right, guys, that's it for the claims. Let's move on to the safety violations. Now, when you look at all these safety violations compiled like this, I guess it does kind of look like I could be an unsafe driver. You got driving on a suspended CDL, a bunch of false logs, and some other stuff. I also had a convoy trailer that I rented for 1 month when my trailer was getting repaired. And of course, I got inspected during that time. And that thing had a slew of things wrong with it. I think I got 3 more violations when I had that thing. Now, I'm not going to go through all of these, but I do want to go through a couple of them. The ones where I think it'll help you guys to know, to understand it and not make the same mistake that I did. So starting with the suspended CDL, it's nowhere near as bad as it sounds. Basically, my license was suspended in New York City for a seatbelt ticket I got like 10 years ago, and I had totally forgotten about. And Idaho participates in this nationwide driver's license credentialing program, to where if your license is suspended in one state, it's suspended in their state. And I got this ticket even before I even had a CDL. So this is what I want you guys to know. If you have any outstanding licensing or ticketing issues, you need to get them handled ASAP, or even preferably before you even get a CDL. Because once you get a CDL, the penalties for that stuff becomes much greater. Now, instead of having to just pay New York $200 to get it resolved, I got an out of service violation and the cost associated with that. And I also got higher commercial truck insurance and the cost associated with that. So that's the lesson I want to really impress upon you guys on that one. Okay, let's move on to the next violation, which is the false logs and false report of duty status, which is basically all related to PC. Now, it took me some time to learn the difference between how I needed to sort of treat PC as a company driver to how I needed to treat PC as an owner operator or a carrier. I think the hours of service rules are set up for drivers. It's set up to protect drivers from like predatory companies trying to overwork them. But I don't think the rules are set up for like either an owner operator who has like a more adventurous trucking style or the actual carriers, company owners who happen to also drive. So you think, all right, I'm gonna use my truck to go do some fun adventure stuff and I'll just use some PC. Nope. Or you think, okay, I'm a business owner. I'm willing to work some long hours, make my enterprise successful. I'm gonna get some maintenance done, and even though it took a large chunk of the day, I'm still gonna drive my 11 hours. Nope. So whenever I got inspected, the inspectors would just home in on this PC. It's like the lowest hanging fruit for them to find something wrong with your logs. And most of the time, they are not receptive to no kind of reasoning. So basically, it was like I was getting a PC violation every single time I got inspected. Okay, so I wanted to convey this to you guys so you can learn this a little bit sooner than I did and hopefully avoid getting all these damn violations and your insurance canceled. All right, now, this is where the advising kind of ends because I can't tell you guys to do this next part. But the way I handled this transition from using PC as an owner operator carrier is I'm just not using PC. Whenever I have to drive for personal reasons, I just disconnect my logs totally. Now, I know this isn't a perfect solution and I'm still experimenting with this, but at least it takes away that low-hanging fruit that those way station inspectors are always looking for. All right, you guys, that's it for this one. I hope it wasn't too long. I hope this helps you manage your insurance claims and your safety violations better than I did so that you can avoid getting dropped by your insurance company and avoid the threat to your trucking existence. Thanks for watching.